Welcome, everyone. This is the real Shahir Afshar. Mazdak is playing me as host in case some horrible calamity will befall me. He will take over, and hopefully he has my full endorsement as our incoming president. We'll have elections in April, I think. But right now, this is our March 30th meeting of the Iranian American Democrats of San Diego. We have an exciting array of speakers for you. People may come and go during the session. I'm going to just say we're going to finish somewhere around 6:30, but I don't really know for sure. We don't want to keep people into the dinner hour. I'm sorry, 7:30. We don't want to keep people into the dinner hour much longer. But we do have, some speakers. I'm going to mention our patron speakers. Mazdak is going to speak about healthcare for all. Hadi Rezai is going to speak about the tax plan, the 2020 plan, and maybe whatever COVID relief bills are there. But our featured speaker is Melahat Rafiei, my friend, my Democratic comrade across the state. We've been talking over the past few weeks with the Bay Area Iranian American Democrats and other Iranian American Democrats across the state about this exciting idea we've been toying with, we're kind of beginning to take shape with, which is something called the Iranian American Democrats of California, whatever we call it. But that's something that maybe Melahat will speak to, but mainly she's here as a candidate for Secretary of the California Democratic Party. She's been an activist for, I'm going to say, all her life. I don't think you ever took a break. You just kind of has been doing it for a long time in democratic progressive politics. So I think we have a lot to learn from her and what her experience has been. And of course, we want to learn about her candidacy and what it's all about and what really the Secretary of the Democratic Party will do for us and how we can help. So with that, I'm not going to go, Melahat, introducing our whole board and everything, but we have our board members, we have visitors from our community in San Diego and around, and we'll let you kind of get through your presentation and then maybe save some time towards as we get closer to 6:30, 6:25 for some Q&A so people can ask you some questions. So
oh, sure, thank you.
Take it away.
I'm the first speaker. Wow, thank you. That was a very, very nice introduction. I'm going to ask Mary Lou to mute if you can, and Megan, if you can, mute. That'd be great. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Melahat. My pronouns are she, her. And although that's a new movement within the politics that we live in, I wish it was available when I was little because no one knew what Melahat was. I would get a lot of Dear Mr. Melahat Rafiei letters because they just aired on the side of, well, it's got to be a man who's the executive director of the party, or it's got to be a man who's running this campaign. So it's nice to meet you all. I am the only Iranian American elected to the DNC. I was elected in 2016 with a woman named Yasmin Tayeb who ran in Virginia and won. So we were both elected in 2016. She chose not to run for re-election. So now I'm back alone being the only Iranian American serving at the national level. And it's lonely because we need to make sure that our voices are heard and that we're at the table. So I'm really happy that's how I ended up meeting Shahriar, was because we've got about 22 Iranian American delegates to the state party, which is huge because in 2004, when I first became a delegate and started working, I mean, there was maybe two of us, maybe Susan and them up in Northern California, and then like me. And so it's really awesome to see, and it's a very wide spectrum of Democrats. You've got some mods in there, you've got some kind of in the middle, and then you've got some really left progressive. So it's really nice to see that that sort of variety within our community. So as Shahir said, I am running to be the secretary of the California Democratic Party. What it means for you, I hope, is that you'll have someone that's a representative of the community at an executive position with the party, which has never happened before. The party has never elected a refugee. I came from Iran when I was 5. We've like, so many people. I'm part of that generation. And when my parents got here, I was 5, my sister was 3, my brother was 1. They had $500 and didn't know anybody. So like we had that whole backstory. So he spoke some English, but grew up in poverty and struggled. And that's what motivates my democratic values and why I'm a Democrat. I believe the progressive policies from this party like saved my life and gave my family and I the opportunity to live which we have for almost 38 years. May 12th is our Welcome to America anniversary, but knock on wood and burn lots of S-fan. My parents live, down the street from us. My siblings and I live all in the same city. We raise our children here, and we have a great life because of so much of what the Democratic Party has fought for. So as your secretary, look, I'm loud. I'm not a quiet person. So if there's an issue that we need to fight for, I'll be there on the front lines, not just as an ally, but as an actual advocate for it. I think it's important to bring our culture and our people to the table because we're kind of nothing, as Susan says, right? Like we're technically white, but we're really not. And there's no box for us. There's no caucus for us. And so I think that, especially with the next generation, like my son is going to be biracial. He's Black and he's Persian. So he's got both communities to draw from. I think it's super important for us to make sure that the culture and the heritage and all of the things that Iranians bring to America are recognized and part of what we do. That's why this statewide organization is so important. And this group is a key component of that. The traditional ways to organize in the state party would be to have a caucus or a statewide organization. I've sat on the rules committee for the state party for over 12 years. And I can tell you, getting a caucus will not be easy. Most of the members vote against it because of the cost incurred to the state party for managing them, maintaining them. The route of a statewide organization is a much better and clearer path. We have the same level of voice and activity within the party, but even a broader reach. And we're not held to the party's standard. If the party doesn't endorse a certain candidate, we can move forward and endorse that candidate if we'd like to. So I really encourage us to do that. It's kind of it's a long process because we've got to get people organized up and down the state. I need to take this model and make sure that Orange County, wakes up. I live in Orange County. We used to have Iranian American Democrats, but it just was never organized enough to maintain itself. Why we don't have Iranian American Democrats in Los Angeles or at least Beverly Hills, like something is beyond me. But like we're traditionally, culturally not organizers. So now we have to become organizers to make this happen. And how we do that, we'll have Bay Area, we'll have San Diego. We need you guys to vote and decide if you want to be a part of this. And you would be the anchors of this statewide organization with the goal of, and we're already doing some recruitment, with the goal of opening up a chapter in Orange County, at least one in Los Angeles, something in the Central Valley, maybe in Sacramento as well. To just make sure that we've got representation everywhere and that we're getting delegates elected from everywhere. Yes, most of us might live in a certain part of the state, but there are Iranians everywhere. One of the biggest almond farmers is a guy named Dariush Assemi in Fresno, and he's a huge donor. He would fly down to Orange County to come to my Obama events. So there's also, again, we've got some revenue and money here that we could put our money together and have a PAC and have a real impact on elections in California and around the country. So I really do hope I'm happy to answer any questions about that so that you need clarity on this, but I really do hope that you vote to participate in Iranian American Democrats of California. I think it can be a really strong organization for us. Trying to think what else.
Melahat, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the structure of the California Democratic Party and how does not Iranian American secretary or whatever, but how does the secretary function within that structure day to day? Is it a full-time job? Do you move to Sacramento, or how does that work? What is it?
No, I couldn't afford to do that because I live in Orange County, remember? Yeah. So there's 5 officers in the party. The chair, there's a male vice chair, a female vice chair, and a male vice chair. It's now called a self-identified female, self-identified other than female, okay? The secretary and the controller. Those are the 5 officers. The only paid full-time position is the chair. And the chair's salary is comparable to what the Senate Pro Tem makes, which is like $140,000 a year, which is not bad, but it's just not enough. So you just, in this role, it's a volunteer position. Currently, the way the bylaws are written, the secretary's roles are minimal. So are all the officers' roles. It's just kind of to work with the chair. There's no job description or anything. Generally, in an organization like yours or a central committee, the secretary takes notes and communicates with the membership, maintains the roster to see if anyone's missing meetings, so on and so forth. But that work is generally done by the state party staff. It's not done by the person who's the secretary, almost like you're just kind of a token head, you're just a token there. But my intention is this: I don't go into anything just to have a title and have a little moniker in front of my name. For me, it's an opportunity to communicate with not just the 3,500 delegates, but folks like yourselves who are part of Democratic clubs and the Democratic ecosystem, to get information out there. The biggest thing challenging Democrats in California is misinformation. And Democrats on the ground don't have what they need to fight it, whether it's with the Newsom recall or whatever else is going on. We need to make sure you have that. That information is available to consultants like me, people who are working in the industry all the time, but no one's thought about making sure that the things where you can amplify different media points, have access to media points, is made available to those at the local level. Local level is where everything is being done, like where you're electing your city council members and so on and so forth, to be able to get them to go run for higher office, and it's all the local level. It's not as sexy as the presidential or some of these congressional and Senate races, but it's the most important for affecting people's everyday lives. So the secretaries, and right now what's happening in the Democratic Party, I don't know if there's any delegates here, what's happening is there's a big movement for a shared governance approach, so that the chair is not the only person making the decisions. I'll tell you, my chances are looking really good. We have an over 80% response to the third of the delegates have already voted, and we've got over an 80% yes rate with all of them. So we've been working at this for months, so I'm confident we'll be successful. But being successful means nothing if I have no power, right? If I can't do anything. So we're all moving in that direction of having shared governance, where the officers have shared decision making, so we can make decisions on where we put our money. I'm going to be expected to raise money, so I'm going to be asking y'all for money at some point soon, right? But what are we going to do with that money? I don't want it spent on lawyers. I want it spent on making sure we either have boots on the ground, we're doing the targeted mail work that we have to do, targeted calls, making sure that we're doing the work that's necessary to lay the ground ahead of time. And they're not scrambling at the very end, getting some 22-year-olds to work on campaigns who have no idea what's going on in that city or in that district and what's happening. So long story short, there is no role yet. I think there might be something more defined later. Regardless, I plan on kind of taking the bull by the horns and making sure that we communicate with people. Maury,
Thanks. I mean, I think, yes, Maury?
Yes, I have a question. As I reported to our board a week ago, fortunately, I was at the San Diego Central Committee when they endorsed Melahat. And I want to ask Melahat, please tell us, advise us, how can we from San Diego elect some more members from our side to the convention, because we have never been represented at the convention.
So the best way to do it, there's two options, right? At this point, in the next 2 years, you'll have the opportunity to run again in the ADEMS, which is one of the ways to get elected. You run within your assembly district, only Democrats participate, and 7 people are elected every assembly district, and 1 person is the executive board representative. That's one way. That's the most grassroots way. Another way of doing it is through the Central Committee. If you get elected to the Central Committee, you serve a 4-year term. Those are 4-year terms. So if you're an elected member of the Central Committee or an alternate to the Central Committee, that's one of the things we've done in Orange County. Like, my alternate is another Iranian woman, Rafiei, and so we made sure that she had a spot on the Central Committee for the state as my alternate to the county Central Committee, right? Knowing the rules helps you kind of maneuver around it. So the Central Committee is your other option. The third option is when you get some of these guys elected, these senators, these assembly members, okay, these congressmen, they all have appointments. Why are we not getting an Iranian person appointed by Mike Levin? Why are we not getting one appointed by Sarah Jacobs or Tasha Broner? Whatever, you got Democrats running that place and not one Iranian is appointed by the entire San Diego legislature. That's a problem. I think it's super important for you to get more involved with the Democratic Party that way. Go ahead, Maury, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I have a couple other follow-up questions.
Sure.
My questions are because I want you to encourage our members to be more active, more proactive in the Democratic Party of San Diego. that's the only way that we can have these positions at
Yes.
the,
Yeah, you finished my sentence. So you guys need to become friendly with Will. He's not going anywhere. He loves me. I work in San Diego County. I run the Oceanside and the Vista firefighters. I've been doing their political work for a decade now. So I mean, and I helped Mara Elliott when she first ran for San Diego City Attorney. I know they don't like her that much now, but when she first ran, I was one of her strategists and her fundraisers. So I've got networks and connections there for sure. I have a really good relationship with the former chair, with when Mike Levin is a personal friend of mine. That's why I keep bringing him up. He just sent me, he got my mail piece and he really liked it. So there's relationships that are there. No one's asked them. No one, I've never asked Mike, hey, why aren't you appointing an Iranian? Here's 5 in your district that are really awesome to do. So we have to get organized for that to happen. And I think that it can. I absolutely think that it can.
thank you. I would appreciate if you could recommend Shahriar and Maz as our next 2 candidates to be at the convention. But also, I would like you to encourage other members here. We've existed for 15 years here, but we've never been proactive. And now, of course, we are being asked to get organized in California. I think that's a good idea, but I think all politics in the US are local, and we have to pay more attention and support our local clubs. In fact, even make Iranian American Democrats in other parts of San Diego.
Yeah, no, I think local is super important. And I also think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I think starting this statewide organization will help bring more people locally. The goal is to have local chapters, not one overall chapter that kind of dictates to everybody, but to have the local chapters to make sure that we're hearing from the Iranian American community and all over the state. The needs are not identical. And one of the things that's important is to make people realize that our needs are very similar to the needs of everyday Californians. Again, the economy back up and running, getting the kids in school, you know, all the things that are similar to what's, you know, necessary.
Sure, sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Maury. I think that's an important point. I mean, if it wasn't for Maury and Amira Sadr, our club would have fell apart a long time ago. A lot of us around on this call were there when we first started it 15 years ago, but we couldn't keep up. Kids, life, God knows what, we fall apart, but Maury and Amira kept it going. But I think, like you said, I think another point of the way you said it is that talking any community to get involved in politics is tough. Add to it the Iranian American community and whatever perception we have of politics and politicians, it's like, right? It's a little bit extra tough.
Oh yeah, my mom and dad didn't talk to me when I decided I was going into politics.
I know.
For 2 months. They talked to me 4 times a day for
Yeah.
2 months. She was so mad at me that I was
I'm
like,
sure.
I'm not gonna be a lawyer, I'm not gonna be a doctor, I'm going into this. Like the whole
Yeah.
thing. So yeah.
It's so, I mean, even if they're not that discouraging, I think a lot of either professionals or family people, whatever, they're wondering what's in it for me. I mean, okay, I got Biden elected. Aren't we done? Can't we rest for another 4 years? I think Iranians are trying to figure out, Americans are trying to figure out not only what to do between midterms, which is obviously the toughest thing in politics, but how do we, to Maury's words, how do we encourage our community and create a strategy locally that we can expand
Well, I think
statewide?
that you've been given a gift with this pandemic. Truly, our lives are affected by what our local leaders do, whether our businesses are open or closed, how safe they are, whether the schools are open or not. Do you have a bunch of supervisors that don't believe in science like we do in Orange County? Like, that's the most important thing. And if people didn't realize it before, they realize it now. I will tell you one of the ways I was able to raise so much money, we raised like $9 million for our clients last cycle, was because I went to donors who would traditionally not give. They maxed out to Katie Porter and Mike Levin, but not give to the mayor of Irvine, you know? So I called them and I made them realize, you live in Irvine, Irvine politics matter more than Congress politics. I mean, it's important. And again, you can do both. It's a $500 limit in Irvine. You've already given $2,200 here. It's, you know, I mean, so you can actually get more involved because people are realizing in their everyday life, even those that the top 1% have been affected by this pandemic. and making them realize that the only real way to get into a resolution or remedy for it is your local politicians. That's if they can't get that, they're just not going to come. They're only going to come for the kebab and like the show, and that's all they care about. And there are some people that are like that. They come around every 4 years, they give you money to come to an event, that's it. And then there's us who are sitting here on a Tuesday night in beautiful Southern California, inside on our laptops. Like, different people.
Any other questions from the members, the group, the public? Melahat will take it all. She's sitting on her feet.
Amira has a question.
Yes, Amira.
I have a couple of questions. One is that you said one of the ways is to go through central committee to become a delegate. What do we exactly do? We go and ask them if we can be candidate for a delegate?
So as a member of the central committee or an alternate to the central committees are given a certain number of delegates, and they have to fill them. And their deadline is after ADEMS. So if you run for ADEMS and you win, boom, bada bing, bada boom, you're good, you're a delegate the direct way. If you don't, and let's just say you ran for central committee and you won central committee, your central committee as a member, you get first dibs on any of the seats the county gets. And then the county can decide, where else to put them. For example, in my county, some of our folks that we wanted to win didn't win. So we made them alternates. I said, hey, this person doesn't have an alternate, they live in your AD, became an alternate. And then we added them as central committee members to the state central committee from the county committee. Does that make sense?
Yes. And then the second question was, you talked about becoming appointed, I guess, by candidates.
Elected officials. Ex officios and now elected officials all get a certain number of appointments to the party, okay? Like when I win, and I'm gonna win, I get 6 appointments to the party. I'm planning on doing it regionally, but more than likely as many Iranians as possible, right? Because like I'm the only one, we gotta bring people all along. Mike Levin gets 6. Senator Peterson, all of them get numbers, even the ones who didn't win, right? Like whoever ran and lost against a Republican, they're the ex officio, they are the representative of the Democratic Party. They get 5 appointments. So you get to be someone's appointment. There's pros and cons, right? Pro is you don't have to run, like you just got appointed, easy peasy. Hard part is if your candidate, like let's just say you're an appointee for Christopher Ward, okay? You're assembly member, Christopher Ward's appointee, and you like Diana Love. Chris Ward endorsed Melahat, and Chris Ward's delegates have to vote for Melahat. So sometimes, when you're someone's appointee, you don't get to vote for who you want to, because you have to kind of beholden to them.
My actual question was, what is involved in becoming an appointee? Does that
Oh, it's just who you know. You just there's the count. So
the work I'm talking about. What do they do?
They're the same as any other delegate. So there's different ways to become a delegate. Once you're a delegate, your roles are exactly the same. So the 3 pathways to being a delegate are ADEM elections, through your central committee, or an appointment by one of the elected officials or an ex officio. Everyone has deadlines to meet. So for example, the ADEM's deadline was February 3rd. The central committee deadline was February 10th. And the elected official deadline was February 15th. And that was because that was their deadline. And so now everyone's given their list and the list is final. The one thing with the elected official ones, they can change regularly. So if there's another e-board coming up or there's another convention coming up and they want to move one of their members around, they can. That's the only people that can move their members around. Otherwise, once you're elected, you're elected. And also, let me just, how you become an appointee is really, it's about knowing the elected official, making sure you're volunteering on their campaign. And in our case, you guys are donating, you're doing things. I mean, if we organize and, San Diego Iranian American Democrats are making calls in for Todd Gloria's reelection or making calls in for this race or that race, there's like, hey, here's our receipts, here's what we've done. Like give our community some representation, and it can happen that way. Yes, Maury.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think you touched on a very important point just now. We have to be proactive in the Democratic Party of San Diego. We have to make our presence, individually, we have to make our presence shown. And
your numbers matter.
Exactly.
The numbers matter. So like if you show up with one person, it's not enough. You have to be like seriously, guys, look at the African American community right now. Look at the Vietnamese community, the AAPI community. They come in numbers.
Yeah, Melahat, I have another point. What I meant is that I cannot sit at my home and be a uh, progressive Democrat and don't go to any of the meetings in San Diego and then expect some people to vote for me to be a delegate. I have to be active. I have to do some phone banking. I have to do some walking in the neighborhood at election time. I have to attend a lot of meetings, let myself be, ask questions, make comments, let myself be heard and get to be known by other people who vote. Otherwise, I'll never be elected as a delegate. You get my point? Because we're talking about some people who are inactive in our club. They're not as active as expected to be.
Sure, no, it's all on you at the end of the day.
They're not
It's
going
like,
to be elected as a delegate.
yeah, it's all on you. It's like everything in life, right? It's how much work you put into it. And,
Exactly.
you know, ultimately the Democratic Party, like any institution, there's racism involved. So they kind of group us all together anyway. It happens. I have Korean clients who are kind of feeling that sting because all the Korean Democrats are being put together when it comes to certain things. So, you know, all we have to do is support one another when we can. When we see other Iranians running, let's make sure we're supporting them because not all of us have the time to do it. You know, I support almost every Iranian person running for office. I was sent Yasamin Ansari in Phoenix, a state I don't even live in, $500. Like everyone, I represent 3 of the Iranian Americans that are elected: Sapi Deshine in West Hollywood, Susie Price, whose husband is American, but she's on the Long Beach City Council, and Sunny Zia on the Long Beach Community College Board. So I think it's supporting each other, getting involved at a level that you got time for. You don't want to mess up your family or anything for it. But that's why, look, at you guys said that you have been involved for 15 years and haven't done much. At least you've kept it going, because in Orange County, yeah, 20 years ago, there was involvement, but like the people that were in charge were busy. They were raising their children, they were running their businesses and didn't have the time to commit to it. I just saw one of them recently and I said, now it's time to come back. Your kids are in college, they're done. Like, come on, let's get going. It's a good time to get engaged. I told them about what we're doing with this potential statewide organization to try to get Orange County, you know, organized again. So yeah, no, I don't want to yell at anybody. I want to inspire you to do this. It can be positive for sure. We can have an influence 100%. You've got someone like me that's always running into the building like it's on fire to try to get things out there. And it only helps me to have more of you, you know, along the ride for the state party and even beyond. And how we do that is we have to be active. We've got to give money. We've got to do all that. And we're better together in our numbers. So if we were to raise, if each of us gave monthly to the PAC and we had like $1 million to give, you know, that would have a lot more impact than a couple 250 here, there, 250 here and there. Like that's how it works. It's a lot of people like you pioneering this, being in front of it for future generations to have some sort of structure for candidates training, for all of that. It doesn't exist yet, but I think we can create it.
Yeah. I think these are all good points, and Maury's good points, and Melahat's obviously awareness that people have families and businesses and lives, and somehow she's found time to do it. And I think as we go forward,
to be fair, like, and again, I'm a single mom, but I do politics for a living. You know, I run campaigns for a living. I'm not an engineer somewhere else. I'm not a doctor somewhere else. I'm not a contractor somewhere else. I'm running campaigns for a living anyway. So yes, I am putting more time in it and not getting paid for this stuff, but it's already what I do. All of you who are putting so much of your time and energy into this are doing it on top of running phenomenal businesses, on top of being the best doctors and lawyers and engineers that you are in your community. So I get that. But when your kids are grown up and gone, you better be and doing this, you know.
But you know, that's always also the challenge too, and we talked about this as a club, how to attract younger, you know, the young professionals who are juggling life and family and business, and how do we find an attractive avenue for them to participate in so they feel like they're getting something out of it. It's not like some volunteer work you have to do, you know, you have to put in your time for the good of cause, for the country, for the community. It's something you should get something out of. I mean, even if you weren't a professional, you know, political consultant, if you participate in a club, you should get something out of it, maybe some connections, some relationships that you can,
I think ultimately, like, that's what, like, the network of Iranian professionals is, right?
Yeah.
What you guys can do is produce results in their community, right?
Yeah.
For a young, like, as I have an 8-year-old, and my kid goes to private school, so I'm lucky. But if he was in public school, my number one issue would be like, how am I going to homeschool him and work? And I'm lucky. I work for myself. I can work from home. I can do anything. But most parents don't have that luxury. My siblings didn't even have that luxury. They work for somebody.
Yeah.
So fix that problem for them, and that mom, that dad, they're going to want to be involved with the club because you're actually giving them tangible results, more than just a kebab dinner and some, them singing. Like,
although that doesn't hurt. That doesn't hurt.
It's always fun, for sure.
Yeah.
But we can do more.
Thank you. No, I think that's a good, like I said, awareness of where we are as a community, where we want to go as a community, and I think that's kind of also makes a case, I think, for individual clubs like the San Diego Democrats, Bay Area Democrats to join forces, because individually, although Maureen's 100% right, all politics are local, all of this stuff is in our local blocks. However, if we hold hands with other Iranian American Democrats across the state, we'll be more powerful.
Right,
We'll
and
be
places
stronger.
like, for example, like places like LA that might have a strong presence, or even you, because you have a club going, can help other parts of the state.
Yeah.
Every 2 years you're going to be facing a question that's larger than your community. It's either the gubernatorial or the presidential, right? And every 2 years you have those congressional races. So you are having those conversations. I genuinely believe that you can do both. You have to do both. You can't do this statewide without the local. And when you do the local, it naturally progresses to the statewide work, because you realize in order to get things done in Congress, you got to go beyond your member of Congress. You got to call someone in Kansas. And one of the things I'm trying to get the California Democratic Party to do, as the largest Democratic Party in the country, is help other states. As a DNC member, I've been able to make relationships with other state parties and see what they're doing. And like, they're run like little mom and pop shops. They're not really big. And there are Democrats in their states who are not for the filibuster, or there are Democrats for their state who don't support $15 federal minimum wage. And we should be able to use our resources to help them.
Yeah.
To make that happen. That's like, just like all of us did making calls into Georgia. Didn't happen by Georgians, like making it happen. So together, united as Iranians throughout the state, I think we can do a lot.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Any other questions for Melahat? She's already has the endorsement of the San Diego Democratic Party. And if you're a delegate, obviously you can vote for her. When is the election?
So the ballots went out last Wednesday. They went out electronically and by mail. I got mine in the mail a couple of days ago. It's right here. And they have until April 21st at 5 p.m. to return your ballots. And they're counted. The convention is April 29th through May 2nd, and that's when they release the results. But yeah, okay. I feel pretty good about it. I'm feeling pretty confident. I've been doing all the work, making the calls, doing the mail, doing the picks.
So as far as anything we can do as individuals or as a club is to maybe tell other delegates that haven't voted yet to vote for you.
Yes, and also you can donate money to my campaign, because all
you can donate money too. And I think Jennifer sent your info on the chat, so if whoever didn't see it, click the chat. You'll see her website, her email. Melahat is very, very reachable. So you got a question, you missed something, you want to put a bug in your ear about something, and email her directly. Here's all her email in the chat, and her staff is very responsive, and she knows a lot about this stuff. So it's really nice to see an Iranian American, I want to say up there, even if I'm sure you'll get elected, but even if you're not, as a political strategist involved in so many,
whether they like it or not, I'm here to stay.
No, you're going to be there. I think I feel good.
That's what we do, and get our people there, not just for contributions. People come to us a lot for money, but I'm like, what are we getting out of it? Why do I have to fight with you when the Iran deal is on the table? Why am I arguing with you for us to get our own classification on the census? Like, come on, we're electing all these people. We've got to get some things done for our community that are tangible.
Right. Thank you. I think we're nearing the end. If any questions for Melahat, maybe we'll put it in the chat. I don't know if Jennifer will stick around or not, but
we have another event.
Okay, there you go. Have a good night. Thank you so much, and good luck.
Wait, Shaheen has a question.
Sure.
Yes,
Shaheen has a question.
I do. How's everybody? Good to see everybody's faces, even though you can't see mine, although mine's from my office. I would say as someone who was there from the beginning when we try to get participation and activity from young folks, I do think a objective or a new way forward should be to focus on one thing to get everybody together, whether it's a healthcare for all, like Maz always talks about, or $15 minimum wage. I think sometimes in the Iranian American community, there's too many interests, too many sort of agendas. Hey, what about Iran, the new regime, whatever. I really do think to get us more coalesced into a unit that is going forward, we need to figure out some topic that affects everybody here in the San Diego area. And I can't see $15 minimum wage being a good one, but the healthcare for all, I think Moz brings this up all the time. I agree with him. I think it's such a tangible thing with COVID now. Maybe that's something we can focus on going forward. And it's a progressive measure. It's not, and it's popular. This narrative that healthcare for all is not popular, it's because the right gets on media and pushes these sort of narratives about healthcare for all, when if you ask individuals and explain to them what that is, it's extremely popular. Just by 2 cents.
You're absolutely right. I think focus is key. I'm a business owner, so I've always been a business owner. I've always been an entrepreneur, and I pay for my employees to have health, vision, dental, and they're going to have access to life insurance soon. And I do it the way the unions do it because I want to be a good employer. That shit's expensive, guys. And like as a business owner, I would love to get business owners like, hey, we're not on a competitive playing field when it comes to other companies, because in other countries, if you're competing with Japan or Mexico or Canada, they're not paying for health insurance for their employees. They don't have to pay for that. They don't have to worry about. They can put that in other places. And when you explain it to them like a business owner, it's kind of like, oh, the lights go on and they start clicking the dots, and it's not about socialism and God forbid caring for other people, so it's more about their bottom line. And talk to people the way they will listen to you. And we can't have a one-size-fits-all messaging. And Iranians, by and large, are entrepreneurs, and we could be the carriers of that message. I think it would resonate as folks who've come here, built from nothing, and are like, hey, this makes sense for everybody, not just the doctors, because the doctors are right too. So, but you're right, Shaheen's right. Focus, and don't focus on Iran stuff. Like, Iran needs to be fixed by Iranians in Iran. All right, let's focus on things here. This is where we are, and yes, if there's a potential war with Iran, we can be vocal. But
because you're right, that's how you're going to get the younger ones, right? If one of the dilemmas is to get younger folks, I'm sorry, you're not going to get an 18 to 35-year-old to care about what's going on back home. I wish they would, but
this is back home for them, right?
Absolutely.
For them. So this is, and for me too, I'm never going back. I mean, I want, my son was like, I really want to visit. I'm like, yeah, when they can't Google me, we can go. If they Google me now, we can't go. All right, so we can go one day. But I do have to run. Thank you so much, everyone, for the opportunity. It was such a pleasure to meet you all virtually. And Shahir is right. I'm pretty accessible. So my mobile number, the 949 number, is on there. I've had it since I was 18. You'll be able to reach me anytime. And yes, if you can let delegates that know about me, that would be very helpful. I think it encourages folks to vote. And please consider a donation to the campaign. Campaigns are expensive, and I could use the help. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Melahat. Good luck. We'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night. So, Maz, we're going to turn it over to you, and you can talk about your favorite subject. It won't be I guess, second favorite, so not kids, but it'll be healthcare for all. We've been hearing about it for a long time. We're interested to know what it means. Is it within reach? What are the challenges ahead of us, and what will this Congress and maybe this president be able to do for us?
All right. Thank you, Shahriar. Yes, I'll go through some of that. I'll go through some facts and figures first, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. And we'll talk about the policy, and we'll talk a little bit about the politics of it. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Hopefully you guys, somebody please give me a indication that you can see this, the Healthcare 2021. Okay, good. All right, so I'll try to go through the slides quickly. There are 60 slides here, and I promise I won't go through all of them. Maybe the first 7 or 8. And many of you probably already know that I've been pretty active in this area. It's not the only issue I care about, but it's one of the ones that I care about the most. And for the last 2-3 months, I've been working with a group of local activists in District 52. I think most of us here are from District 52, not all, but probably most of us, and including Emily, who's, I believe, on the call. And so these slides is really the work of all the activists kind of fused together here. So I'm honored to be delivering it. So before we talk about single payer healthcare, actually, before I go even further, I need to move this guy out of the way. Okay, much better. So it's important that before we talk about single payer healthcare and understanding what it means, that we first talk about the ACA. You know, the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, has now had the benefit of being in place for the last 10, 11 years. And it did some good things. It drastically reduced the number of uninsured. It eliminated the ability of private insurance companies to discriminate on the basis of pre-existing conditions. It did a few other things that were good, but its central failure is its inability to control costs. And you can just look at the graph here on the left, where you can see that healthcare deductibles and premiums have far outpaced workers' wages and overall inflation over the period that it's been enacted. And there's really good reasons why this has happened. It shouldn't be a big surprise if you actually dig deep. But all the other benefits and that it has brought are more or less masked by this undeniable problem, which is it's grossly expensive. So most Americans today, most Americans under 65 get their healthcare through their employer. And if they work for a company that has 50 or fewer employees, there's a really good chance that their employer doesn't even provide healthcare insurance because they're not required to. And a typical family of 4 with annual income of $100,000, which is the median income in District 52, and there's a reason I'm focusing on District 52, and you'll see at the end, can expect to pay $20,000 or more on healthcare premiums alone. Because their employer doesn't provide it, they'll be pushed into the healthcare exchanges, and that's what typically costs today, even after subsidies. So that translates to about 30% of their take-home pay. And by the way, $100,000 is a affluent district. District 52 is considered a very affluent district. So that's simply not sustainable for a typical family. And in this district alone, there are 40,000 uninsured people. So even setting aside the morality of this problem and the compassionate argument of, you know, the wealthiest country in the world not guaranteeing healthcare to their citizens, this is really an economic problem. It's an economic problem that affects all of us, which is at any point, any of those 40,000 uninsured people are one illness away from accessing the emergency room as their first point of contact with our healthcare system. That's by far the most expensive care you can receive. And that cost, guess what, gets passed on to all of us. So even if you're of the mindset that, you know, I don't like to provide healthcare to people who, quote, don't deserve it, whatever that means, just know that you are paying for it in some other way, and you're paying for it a lot more expensively. So some top line statistics here: 68,000. We have 68,000 unnecessary deaths per year due purely to inadequate healthcare insurance affordability questions. It's not even a thing amongst other countries, other advanced countries. Like it's one thing for medical malpractice, or maybe you didn't get the proper care and you died. That's one thing. But to die because you couldn't afford it is something that's very uniquely American. There are still over 500,000 medical bankruptcies per year, which represents two-thirds of all personal bankruptcies are due to medical bills. Again, something that's not a thing outside of the US. People don't even understand what that means. 30 million still uninsured as of 2020 before the pandemic, and 40 million plus underinsured, people who have insurance but cannot afford the out-of-pocket expenses. So the reason single-payer healthcare or Medicare for All is so important and so such a good piece of reform is it's the only approach that holistically addresses the deficiencies of our healthcare system. By recognizing that people need various kinds of care during their entire lives: dental, vision, hearing, mental health, reproductive care, long-term care, etc. And it basically does away with the fragmented system that we have today, where you have to purchase insurance for all the various things, and just aggregates them under one insurer called Medicare. So there are other proposals that are out there, including the public option, the so-called public option. Just know that that is not the same thing as a single-payer healthcare system. One of the benefits of single-payer healthcare is that it simplifies the whole system and integrates everything under one, thereby eliminating all the administrative overhead. So I'll touch a little more about public option a little later. So some of you may already be aware that we pay far, far more for our healthcare than just about any country. We pay, this is as of 2019, the number has already gone up since this slide was made, $11,000 per capita on healthcare. Amongst the wealthy countries, the ones that pay more for healthcare, the median is about $5,500. So it's basically half of what we pay per capita. And oh, by the way, they have universal healthcare. Now, one of the common things you hear in media is Medicare for All is going to cost so much money, it's going to bankrupt the country, et cetera, et cetera. Well, study after study after study have shown that Medicare for All would actually save between 2 to 5 trillion, trillion with a T, over our current system. And even ones commissioned by right-wing think tanks like the Mercatus Center at George Mason University, which was essentially funded by the Koch brothers, intent on dismissing Medicare for All, and then accidentally proving the point as part of that study that it would actually save $2 trillion. And this is done with, the author of this was a George W. Bush economist, and using very conservative assumptions. So even that proved $2 trillion in savings over a decade. And if that's not convincing enough, the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which is, its job is to score budget-related matters within Congress, and it's supposed to be very nonpartisan, has concluded just this last December that Medicare for All would save $42 billion to $743 billion per year. So the case for cost is closed and shut. So anyone in media or otherwise who comes and tells you Medicare for All would cost too much money, just know that they just haven't done their basic homework. And none of this should be surprising for anyone who actually digs into this. The reason Medicare for All is able to save so much money, and by the way, by providing universal health care, which is something we don't currently have, the reason it can do this is several-fold. One, by being the only payer, it has monopsony power. Monopsony is kind of the equivalent of a monopoly, but on the purchasing side. So it has economic power because it's the only buyer of healthcare. And by being the only buyer of healthcare, it can control costs, unlike the way our current system works. The second way it can do this is by being very simple and under one insurer. It considerably cuts down on administrative overhead, which, depending on which study you go with, 20 to 25% of our healthcare dollars are purely administrative overhead. People who are just trying to figure out, do you qualify for this for this particular treatment? which one is your insurance carrier, who's your employer, et cetera, et cetera. All that is pure waste, doesn't deliver any health. So this is the second way it saves costs. The third way it saves costs is by making healthcare universal. It can genuinely prioritize preventative care over emergency care, which is something that our current system does. I know that the ACA attempted to do that, but by still having 30 million uninsured people, it's essentially worthless because people still ration their care and don't go to the doctor when they need to and wait until it's a bigger expense. So you might be wondering, a healthcare system that delivers universal healthcare and cuts down costs must have worse outcome. Well, just based on the most common health indicators, the most key, the top key indicators, life expectancy, child mortality, or maternal mortality, you can see we significantly lag our peers. And these are peers that have similar income and GDP per capita as we do. And you can see, for instance, in the case of life expectancy, coincident with the enactment of the ACA, life expectancy in the US has actually plateaued. And even a couple of years ago, we actually saw a decline, which is unheard of in the advanced world. Other nations, you can see their life expectancy continues to grow. I'm not saying that this is caused by the ACA, but it certainly shows a correlation. Other reasons. So Medicare for All, I think I heard other people mention this before I started speaking. It's about leveling the playing field for small business. Even as at the time that the ACA was enacted about 10 years ago, only 30% of small businesses less with fewer than 50 employees were offering healthcare to their employees. Since as of today, 10 years later, that number has gone even further down. It's closer to 20% now because it's simply not affordable to small business to provide it. And guess what? That creates a competitive disadvantage to small business. And if you want an economy that promotes innovation, entrepreneurship, which is something that our politicians love to tout, and I would agree is hugely important, we don't have that today in the US. Only the large businesses have the scale to deliver healthcare to their employees. And even the large businesses, as was mentioned earlier, have a competitive disadvantage against their international peers, those that have their employees, a larger percentage of their employees overseas, because those companies, while they may have higher taxes in some cases, do not have to provide healthcare to their employees. So that's, again, a huge competitive disadvantage for even big business. Medicare for All provides choice and freedom. And this is another point that is constantly distorted in the media. Today, with original Medicare, if anyone here is over 65 and has original Medicare, knows that they can go to just about any doctor that they choose. They don't even need to get an approval before they go see their doctor. For those of us who are under 65 and have employment-based healthcare, we have to get permission. Now, let's talk about choice, because you often hear things like, well, people like the idea of, they like their insurance, or they like the idea of being able to go to a public option, which, by the way, doesn't truly exist today, or a private option. That's a misnomer. People like the idea of choice when it comes to their provider, not when it comes to their insurance. They just want an insurance company that stays out of the way and pays their bills. So Medicare is the only healthcare system that has that proven record, because it's just inherently does this. It gives you choice. Today, if you get your insurance through your employer, that insurance company is not chosen by you. It's chosen by your employer. And that that insurance company, that private insurance company, limits your choice further by limiting you to a certain network most often. And then even after that, they probably restrict your choice further by telling you to stay in network, out of network, and they can always come back and deny you your care. So that doesn't sound like choice to me at all. Medicare for All is simple. Guess what? Medicare already exists. It's not like we have to invent something new. Medicare exists today for people over 65. And the original Medicare itself took only 1 year from the time that it was voted upon to put into effect. This was using 1960s technology. So this argument about it being so disruptive, I think, is again just a scare tactic. Healthcare equity is massively important. Our system today is grossly uneven, as you can see. And this is just in being able to access the healthcare system, let alone healthcare outcomes. So you can see Hispanics, for instance, uninsured rate nationally is 20%. Amongst whites, it's 7.5%, which I would argue is really high in and of itself. And that's almost a 3-time disparity in just that. And in this district alone, District 52, 15% of this district is Hispanic. So that is not something that we should be happy or be willing to go along with. So why now? Well, if the case for your healthcare being tied to employment was not already obviously not a bad idea, it wasn't apparent that it was a bad idea. Well, certainly the pandemic has proven that point, with 10 million jobs lost and many of them permanently. By the way, 10 million is just where we ended up at the end of 2020. During the pandemic, the start of the pandemic, the unemployment, the job losses were actually much higher. So a system that ties it to your employment is just ridiculous. At a time where you lose your job and you don't have money, you have to now go find health insurance in the exchanges, and it's really expensive. The other thing that's happened, this is a trend that's been happening for years, is more and more people are getting pushed to gig work. And with the enactment of Proposition 22 just this last November, right here in California, more and more people are getting pushed to gig work. And we saw the effects of Prop 22, which was bankrolled by Uber and Lyft and other gig companies. We saw the effect almost immediately when Vons and Albertsons laid off their full-time delivery workers and replaced them with gig workers. Those are more people without healthcare insurance. Democrats now control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. This is a unique opportunity to actually walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So Mitch McConnell can no longer block the agenda. Democrats, if they do not enact policies that measurably improve people's lives, such as improving the broken state of our healthcare system, there's a serious risk of losing in 2022, 2024. The odds are already stacked against the Democrats in 2022 and 2024, with all the voter suppression that's going on in Georgia and Arizona and other places. Just holding on to the seats that the Democrats currently have is going to be hard enough. But the worst thing that the Democrats can do right now is not give people a reason to go and vote in 22, 24, and 24. So now is the time for us to push the party to actually pass good legislation. Medicare for All, as Shaheen mentioned, is a winning political strategy. Recent polls show 69% support among all Americans. This is something that the ACA Obamacare has never enjoyed. This includes 46% support among Republicans, which is unbelievable. Now, again, that's voters, not politicians. There's 0% support among Republican politicians, but something that enjoys 70% is it should just be enacted into law. It shouldn't be so hard, but that's our democracy today. So I'll make one more point about this, and we'll quickly go into Q&A shortly here. But So in 2018, so this picture would have looked a lot different just 3 years ago. We didn't have a single federal lawmaker who supported Medicare for All. In 2018, Mike Levin in District 49 ran on Medicare for All in a Republican-leaning district, more registered Republicans than District 52, and with very similar income demographics than District 52, also an affluent district. And he won in 2018. And then he won again in 2020. In District 51, Juan Vargas was a bit of a skeptic at first, but his constituents pushed him. And in 2019, he became a co-sponsor of HR 1384, which was the Medicare for All Act of 2019. And then 1 year later, in District 53, Sarah Jacobs ran on Medicare for All, replacing Susan Davis, who was not a supporter of Medicare for All. And she also won comfortably in District 53. So do you guys see a pattern? 2021 is the year to get our Congressman Scott Peters in District 52 as his co-sponsor. He's somebody we have been working on. I mean, I personally attended town halls with him going back to 2017, where I've seen people after people come on and make the case for Medicare for All. And somehow he has managed to dodge this issue. We met with him in a more private setting in 2019, gave him all the facts and figures. He said he'd look into it, and then we stopped hearing from him again. We met with him just this last month, February 19th. A group of us secured a meeting with him. He gave us just 20 minutes to talk about this very important topic. We gave him essentially this presentation. Again, he showed a lot of interest. He listened, and he said that this deserves a 2-hour meeting, and that we should have a follow-up. And then his office went quiet again, and said that we could meet again in 3 months. We reiterated that the Medicare for All Act of 2021, the bill was set to be released in mid-May, and it did happen. It happened on mid-March, I should say. And it did get released on March 17th, and he's not a co-sponsor. So I think the time now to ask and beg is over. I think we need to organize and figure out how to push him and get him on board. And a group of us have been working on just that. And so really my ask here is for you, and I suspect many of you here are supporters of the idea of universal healthcare, this idea that our government should guarantee healthcare, especially when the costs would be a lot less. It would make us a much better country, a much healthier country, and much more equitable country. And so I would urge you to move from the position of being a passive supporter of universal healthcare and become an active supporter. And to do this, we have a script that Emily has written that I've included in the slides, and I'm happy to share this with anyone here. And I encourage you to share these slides with anyone you like. Call his office, make the point that you want Medicare for All and that you understand the facts. And the other thing you can do is you can join the National Nurses United, who I've been volunteering with for the last 3 or 4 years. They've been at the forefront of this, and they are pushing, and they've been relentless about getting more and more supporters on board. And then you can also just reach out to me directly. This is something I've been working on for a long time. And we have a local group in District 52 that I've been working with. And we are on the cusp of entering the next phase of our push, which is to basically call out Congressman Scott Peters on his donations, on his campaign donations, which come. So just maybe some of you already know this, but it's important to understand. He gets 95% of his campaign donations from big donors, PACs, corporations, less than 5% from small donors. And the number one industry that contributes to his campaign is the healthcare industry. So while he may give you some stories about, he's working to shore up the ACA, or he's working on the public option, or whatever he tells you, just realize that none of those are going to be sufficient to fit the scale and size of the problem at hand. And it's just a way to dodge the real problem, which is that the private insurance industry has been price gouging our nation for way too long, and they are not delivering any value. And so the only reason he's doing that is, unfortunately, he's sponsored by them. So, but we can do something about that. And the way what we can do about it is, one, to call him out, to make it very clear, and two, work within organizations that are pushing for Medicare for All. And we're going to follow up with a signature campaign to collect as many supporters and basically ask them to pledge not to take any more campaign donations from the industry. I think just bring a little bit of light to what he's been doing and to try to get him to change his view. So I'm sorry if I put anyone to sleep, but I think this concludes my my presentation. And I have the unenviable task of being the moderator and the presenter now, because Shahriar has fled the scene. So I'll open it up to questions.
I'm still here.
Oh, you're still there.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, cool. Then I'll let you ask the questions.
The reports of my demise have been greatly exaggerated. Let me see if my video still works. I was just trying to do something. Okay. Well, thank you. That's, I think that's the most organized presentation on a particular legislative topic I've ever seen. And it's good that you did, like one of our own people did it. I feel like good. We could probably do something like this on other topics eventually. And would this be something you can share, or is it?
Yes.
Okay. Is this how we would put it? Would we put it like in a PDF form on our website maybe, or?
Yes, we can do all of that. And I should add that I presented this to the La Jolla Democrats just a couple of weeks ago. It went very well. They followed it up with a resolution that was passed unanimously in support of Medicare for All, and they sent that resolution to Scott Peters and the DNC and several other places. That's something that I would encourage any large organization to do. Some of what I'll call the corporate wing of the Democratic Party is too beholden to the industry instead of their own voters. And so once they see organization after organization doing this, it's amazing. It actually does work. So it's not as simple as calling their office. I think that's necessary but insufficient. I think you really have to do an all of the above approach in order to get their attention. Yeah.
Amir and Maury have a question, but I just saw Scott Peters over the weekend. Would this be something we would, could we as a club send this to everybody? Is that what I'm hearing? Like we should do this every.
When you say everybody, you mean every
member of Congress in our delegation?
So yes, but I would say a more effective strategy is one that prioritizes our own district. So this sort of activism is going on at every district level. And as I showed in the previous slide, in San Diego, every Democratic lawmaker has become a sponsor. Scott Peters is the only one left. Scott Peters is in the same category as Darrell Issa right now, whether he wants to acknowledge it or not.
Yeah. So
this is the time really to beat him up politically, not physically.
Okay, good notation. All right, make a note.
I need to put that disclaimer in there before I get taken out of context.
Okay. So we should talk more about this
Yeah.
as a club, and because not only this issue, but there might be, we've never quite, I want to say, gotten to the level of, we've been candidate focused. We
Yes.
haven't quite developed a legislative platform. Obviously, it should be whatever the party, the San Diego Democratic Party's platform is, but as individuals, obviously, we're able to do things, and it sounds like clubs, La Jolla Club is able to adopt it. You know, I'm personally involved with occasionally with the Carmel Valley Democrats. You know, Maury with Claremont. I mean, all of us are scattered around town. It shouldn't be that big a deal to present this to those clubs. We're always looking for information, and you take it to the next level. Will you adopt it? Now you got a dozen different clubs in San Diego that some of it overlaps in Scott's district, some of it not, that support something like this. Okay.
So Shahriar, let me just say, there's not a big pressure for the club to do something. I mean, it would be nice if the club did come up with something to do. But the bigger point, I think, is just to make sure people are well educated about this issue, because the media does a terrible job of educating us on any of these issues. And, you know, the information is there and the opportunities for activism is there. So I personally believe it's, you know, I'm really urging everyone to move from a passive to active. And you can, you know, if the club doesn't have to necessarily do a whole lot, it's just a way to connect us to other venues where you can do those things.
Yeah. Maury.
Thank you, Maz, for a fantastic presentation. A very high quality presentation that obviously you've been working on this issue for 5 years. So you have collected a lot of good information based on facts. And so I would like to have a copy of this to send it to the chair of the Democratic Party in San Diego, Will Roger Kennedy. And so, and then I would propose that since we have a lot of Iranian Americans living in District 52, we should do the same thing as La Jolla Democrats. Send propose a resolution in our club, approve it, and then send it with a letter to Scott Peters.
We can do that now, can't we?
Yes, of course.
So unless let's hear from Amira and then maybe take a quick vote. Might as well make some action happen now that we're all jazzed up with Maz's hard work. Go ahead, Amira.
Thanks, Maz, that was great. One of my biggest issues has been concern is that the doctors, a lot of doctors, they don't accept Medicare or Medi-Cal or this kind of insurance. Then a lot of people are not going, you know, if we force people to go into this and they don't get coverage by the doctors, then that doesn't really work for everybody.
Okay, so let me address that. I think you might be conflating Medicaid with Medicare. They're very different. Medicare is the most predictable, has the most predictable reimbursement rates, and actually just about any doctor takes Medicare. A doctor may not work with a certain network, private network, but just about all doctors work with Medicare. So it's actually the most universal way. And then the second thing is doctors have to go through a lot of hoops to get reimbursed at times from private insurance. On paper, sometimes they get higher reimbursement, but the hassle that they have to go through is actually a lot more. And so when you take those two things into account, you'll see why so many doctors are more and more trending towards this. We've had, during our meeting with Scott Peters, we had multiple doctors who were in that meeting who explained, one of them had left the profession, not the profession, but the existing model, the insurance model, and opted for his own fee-for-service system because he was just so fed up with the broken system that he was dealing with, or having to deliver care to people who don't have insurance, or having to refuse care to people who don't have insurance. And so the financial side, I don't have enough time to go through facts and figures, but I actually have some backup slides related to this. And I'm happy to talk about that as well, maybe in more detail.
do you have facts and figures about like mental care doctors?
I don't have
Psychologists,
that.
psychiatrists,
I don't have
therapists?
facts and figures on mental health directly, but I can tell you that Medicare for All would include mental health, and it would aggregate it or integrate it, which would be a massive improvement from what we have today, which is a hodgepodge system that doesn't do that. I don't know if Emily, are you on the bridge? I don't know if Emily.
Yes, I'm here.
I think this is something you might have looked into, right? Mental health?
Yes, I looked into it, and what I found is that 43% of psychiatrists don't accept insurance at all, that they don't really want to deal with it, and they just take cash payments only. However, part of the reason that doctors don't want to deal with it is because there's so many payers and it's so much bureaucracy that it's not really worth their time. And so once we have a single payer system, all of the paperwork and the administration becomes streamlined, and they're able to really spend more time with the patients than they are with billing and with people. But specific to mental health care, that was what I found.
Thanks, Emily.
Mhm.
I'm going to pass it back for more questions if we have time. But one thing I wanted to make sure I don't forget is, so I think Shahriar talked about maybe adopting a resolution within the club, and we can do that now or later. But the other thing I want to say is, if you want to be plugged into this effort, please provide your email address to me or to Emily here, right here on this chat. And, or, after this meeting, feel free to reach out to us. There are multiple ways to get involved with this push.
And Mary Lou just shared the La Jolla resolution in the chat. If anyone's interested, that was adopted, sounds like.
Yeah, I didn't quite get the whole thing, but I can get it. If the club is interested, I have the whole thing. And also the steps that have been taken since then, with the resolution itself.
Why don't we do this, Mary? Why don't you get the whole thing, and then
Okay.
we'll put it on the agenda for next time.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Because I think it's very well, stated, and I'll ask Marcia about it. I'm sure she won't care, but she's the one that wrote it up. And
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure they won't care if we plagiarize their resolution. Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't think they'll care.
Yeah. Sounds good. That's what clubs are there for. Thank you,
Yeah.
Maj. Thank you, Mary Lou. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. Maybe if there are no more, I don't think I see any hands raised. Yes, Ali.
You're on mute.
I know. Thank you, Maz. It was very informative and, really smooth presentation. Easy to understand for everyone, including me. One thing I came across with a lot of people is that universal healthcare versus Medicare for all. For universal, there are a lot of negative vibes out there because it kind of corresponds with socialism and that kind of stuff. So a lot of people are really defensive about it. But when you talk about Medicare, especially since I started using Medicare, I never had any problem whatsoever. As you mentioned, all the doctors accepted, and the cost and everything is totally minimal. So Medicare for all, I think, is more attractive for people, and the data that you presented is more understandable. The main thing is, I think, is educating people, and we should use every venue that we have to educate people, for relatives, whatever. When people more talk about it and more know about it, they will support it. So my suggestion and my proposal to you is to cut an article with your beautiful graphs and everything for me, so that I can present it in PAIC. That would probably goes a long way. Hopefully people, when they have it in their hands and not as just presentation that goes by, when they have it as a reference, they can probably refer to it and defend their points among their relatives and colleagues and family. So can you do that?
Yeah, I can definitely work on that. Yeah, I'm all about getting the word out and getting people educated about this subject. I'll just make one point about the socialism thing. Without taking a position on socialism versus capitalism, let me be very clear. Medicare for All is not socialism. It would keep the healthcare providers in place. The private healthcare providers, hospitals, all that will still be in place. It's the insurance layer that gets eliminated because the insurance layer is not delivering any value to the overall system. So this point is willfully distorted in our media again, because people have a negative, not everybody, but some people have a negative association with socialism. And so that's another sort of weapon that's used against this. And it's just blatantly false. Medicare for All is not socialism. The VA is socialism because the VA provides the doctors too. But this system would not be. So I just want to clarify that.
I think it is clear to us, but the talking point from the right doesn't need to be truth. They can simply lob darts at an idea which they're threatened by and not worry about the facts. So I think the challenge with something like this, like you aptly pointed out, we have social programs in this country. We don't call it socialism. We call it something else because we like it, we need it, we're desperate for it. The country would fall apart without it. But this, for some reason, biggest industrial country in the world, without a universal healthcare or healthcare from the government, just shocking. I mean, you have to escape to Canada to get healthcare like that. So I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation. And I think the PAIC article, I'm also happy to present it to the AIAP board. I'm encouraging them to interact more with political reps on both sides, or have staff, elected staff, come to our meetings and give community updates. And I think we can, as a community, ask them for updates on this very important issue to our community. Bipartisanship, it's not a partisan issue, it's a health and life issue. So
right.
I get it. And yet, if there are no more questions, we're kind of running a little bit late, but let's get to our big closer, our finisher. I expect a big finish with Mr. Rafiei to really talk about taxes. I know it doesn't really, I know in this business, people aren't excited about taxes, but so much has happened in the past couple of years with the tax code, with the COVID relief coming. I think if the faster we get smart about it and share it with our community, the better direct impacts we will feel immediately. So if Mr. Rafiei is ready, you may, oh, there we go. Thank you so much. Off you go. Welcome.
Sound? No sound.
Mute. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Happy Nowruz, Happy New Year. My name is Hedi Jafari, and I'm gonna leave the first page to you guys because we don't have that much time for my presentation. Maybe you have all my contact person, and then you can contact me, contact information, and you can contact me for any question. I don't mind at all. So, and I was working for university for 25 years as financial manager, and I'm doing taxes for 20 years. I'm an enrolled agent. So people that saw my presentation before for AIP, we don't have time that much that I wanted to touch some of them, but unfortunately, we don't have that much time. But anyway, I talk about recovery rebate, unemployment, payroll, PPP loan, rental, and all of those. But I'm not going to go through this again. The first stimulus that we received last year, it was $1,200 for 75 to 99 for single, $2,400 for married filing jointly, but the limit of 150 to 198 and head of household. And the second one was end of December and beginning of January, 600 for adults and children under 16 years old. But since then, this third one came recently, and it was 1,400. And the good thing with there was advantages and disadvantages. Advantage was that for everybody, there was no age limit for kids. It was 1,400 for all of the members of the family, but unfortunately, they dropped the threshold. 75,000 to 80,000 for single people and 150 to 160,000 for married filing jointly. So that was the disadvantages that some of the people, they didn't get anything. And the other thing that I was talking at AIAP about unemployment, people that they receive unemployment last year, unemployment normally is taxable to the federal, is not taxable to the state. And at that time, when we had meeting, unemployment was 100% fully taxed on federal, but with the new passed $1.9 trillion, they decide that the first 10,200 is not, unemployment is not taxable. For being qualified for that, the household shouldn't make more than 150,000. If your household is making, it doesn't matter single, married, or head of household. If your head of, if your household is making or made 150,000 or less, you can the software automatically exclude 10,200. So, and the rest is going to be taxable. This is one thing new after my last presentation. And the other thing is that in this 1.9 trillion, beginning 2021, child tax credit right now that is $2,000. They increased that one to $3,600 for children under 6 years old and children from 6 to 17 to 3,000 per child. And then they're not going to wait until you do your taxes to get the credit. They're going to pay family monthly. So for example, if you have 2 children under 6, you're going to, and it's going to be 7,200. So you're going to get $600 check per month and not to wait until you do your taxes and get the credit. And this is a good thing. And it's going to start July 1st. So they are not.
Real quick, Hadijan, is the tax credit for kids tied to the previous income threshold?
No.
No, so anybody with a kid?
They didn't say anything about the threshold, but the threshold before was 400,000. So, but I think that this is more for middle class, lower income and people, because I consider 400,000 higher middle class. So they did on this the legislation that they passed, they didn't talk about the threshold. Maybe the threshold is going to stay the same.
Yeah. So basically, anyone making up to 400,000 can qualify for these child tax credits.
Exactly.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and let me explain it to you. I don't know if you know about refundable credit and non-refundable credit. Let me just explain a little bit about that. Sure. Some credits, for example, some credit that we have on taxes are not refundable. It means that it can bring your tax to zero, but if there is more credit, you're not eligible for that. And the one that is refundable, it means that it brings your taxes to zero, then you're going to get the rest also. If the child tax credit had 2 portions before, refundable and non-refundable, but now this 3,600 and 3,600 or 3,000 is fully refundable. It means that even if you don't owe taxes, you're going to get this credit. And that's why they are going to send it monthly. This is kind of like Canada, Scandinavian, and France, England, that they send monthly to the parents, not waiting for a year. And it's going to send in advance. But they are talking about that it's going to start July 1st. They're not going to process anything until July 1st. After July 1st, you're going to get it, and you're going to get it retroactive. People that are eligible retroactive from January 1st, 2021. So these are the most important part that was those were new since last AIP meeting that I talked about. I don't know how much time we have. These are my lecture before the PPP loan, people that they had this one, it's time for, they can submit their application for forgiveness. And there's 3 different forms: simple form, easy form, and normal form. And so if you had that one through your bank, you filed the forgiveness. If you spend that one for your payroll or for rent, office rent, there can be forgiven.
So this is for, I'm sorry, so this is for, the payroll is for, if you own a business and you have a payroll, this loan is for you.
Yes, exactly. So because some of my clients, they're calling me that, oh, I wanted to apply for that because the first requirement is that you have payroll. And the reason for the PPP loan, payroll protection program, was to take people out of unemployment and put back to work. So government thought that, okay, if you're going to pay unemployment, it's better to pay to the business owner to bring their employees back to their job. So this is the reason for that. So if you want to apply for that, the first requirement said, okay, how much payroll did you have?
I see. But there's no guarantee that the business owner brought their people back.
Yeah, that's another issue. So if they are gonna, there was some business in San Diego that I heard that they didn't bring it back then, and the owner paid himself, and they didn't bring the employee back to work for them. But anyway, so that's the thing. Yeah, eligible to be forgiven, because it can be forgiven. The loan has 1% interest for 30 years. If you're not eligible for being forgiven, then you have the opportunity, the option to pay it back 1% in 30 years. But if, as I said, if you paid for payroll, for benefit of the employee, and for the rent of your office, phone, gas, internet of the office, it can be forgiven. And there is an application that you fill out, and so. I don't know. It's past Shahriar, it passed 7:30. I don't know.
Don't worry about it. This is the most excited I've ever been about taxes. So
okay.
Keep going.
Eddie, this is good. Keep going, Eddie.
Yeah.
Keep
going. Don't worry about it.
I don't have any problem. So I don't want people to get bored and just tired of the 2 hours or so. Okay, rental income. This is maybe more applicable to this group, that if you have investment property, the rental income and loss. In 2020, many people that their tenants, they didn't pay for rent, but you know that maybe they haven't paid your rent, and but as soon as they release that they have to pay, or you can evacuate them, that you can sue them in the court and pay it. It's not something that is going to go away. And some people were asking me that, okay, if he didn't get the rent, it's going to be a loss. Of course, if you had 2,000 a month, 24, and you didn't get that one, so automatically your Schedule E, your rental schedule, is going to show as a loss, and you can claim and deduct from your income. Of course, there is a threshold that if you can, but you are not going to lose that loss. So relief, and okay, there was other relief regarding if you had to withdraw money from your IRA or retirement plan last year because due to COVID, then you have the opportunity to, the penalty is going to be waived because when you are not 59 and a half and withdraw money from your retirement for any reason, you put it on your tax, on your income, but there's 10% penalty on the federal and 2.5% penalty for the state. But last year, if you had to, because you were unemployed due to coronavirus situation, then the penalty is going to be waived. But, and the other option that they are providing, that you can request that, okay, I'm going to pay that money that I borrowed from my retirement, withdraw from my retirement, I'm going to pay it back. Then you can pay it back. The other option is that if you withdraw, for example, $9,000, you have the option to report it in 3 years, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, not to pay that much tax on 9,000 right away. But it should be, everything should be, nobody can say that, okay, I withdraw money. You need to show them that it was COVID related withdraw distribution. So, yes, adverse financial consequences and so on. That's the requirement for that. Distribution, yeah. I talk about this one also, that you can pay it back in 3 years. You can report it in 3 years. You can pay it back in 3 years, or you can say everything, but penalty is going to be waived. And tax, yeah, this is what I talk fast. Again, you can repay that one in 3 years, not to pay any taxes on that if your situation is getting better into 2021. And just if you have a little bit about 1031 exchange, maybe you heard about that. If you have an investment property and you want to upgrade that one, you can sell the property that you have and not to pay any taxes, because it's investment is a capital gain involved. Investment property, you can just not to pay tax, and you have to buy another property within 6 months, and the minimum price should be the sales price of the previous one. So, and you can do it at the same time. You don't need to sell it first, buy next. You can buy first and sell next. But the period for being eligible for 1031 exchange is 6 months. So,
but isn't that the current law?
It was before and current law, yeah.
Yeah, so this didn't change. It's just
no, it hasn't changed. So this is, I wanted the last time I wanted to explain, because I get this question from many people that they say, I have an investment property and can I move in? Can I buy and move in myself? Normally 1031 exchange is for investment property, but yes, you can buy and just move in yourself. But sometimes if IRS see that one, it's gonna catch you and say, okay, that was investment property, you couldn't move in yourself as your own business.
I don't know if we're gonna move away from investment properties, but I'm just curious about the Trump loophole of carrying over losses over many years from is that still intact? How does that work, and what is that called?
It's a different issue. You're talking about the loss carry forward, but this one is not gonna give investor a carry forward loss. This is that when you sell a investment property, if you bought it for 200 and you sell it for 500, you need to pay capital gain on 300.
Yeah. No, I know about 1031. I'm just curious, and sorry to disrupt the flow. I'm just curious about the loophole that Trump famously took advantage of carrying over losses for many years. Is that still intact?
Yes, yeah, it is. You know that any loss that you have always is going to be carried forward. For example, a stock transaction. So if you have 50,000 loss, you're not going to lose that, but the limitation is 3,000 every year. It's going to go forever. And a capital loss, and I think that this is what he did, is business loss. And business loss is never ever going to disappear. It's going to just carry forward. The reason that he didn't pay taxes over the years, because he had a huge loss on those kind of investment that he had, and every year he carry forward and he's going forward and bring his loss lower, but it's still valid.
Got it.
It's still doable. we have that was not issue with Democrat or Republican. That was the IRS rule.
Could I add quick question? Isn't for that reason, for that, what you were just talking about, isn't that 3 years forward or 2 years backward?
No, the capital loss is always it goes always forever. It's not 3 years. So
Okay.
yeah, capital loss is always forever. We had some loss in 2000 on a stock, so we could be carry forward for at least 10 years, 15 years. And I have clients right now that they have still carry forwards from 2000 crash. So the stock market. So that doesn't matter. So it's capital gain is not going to be only 3 years or 2 years back or 3 years forward. Okay. So that was that was all. And again, this is my contact information. I will be happy. Whoever has any question, Amira knows about that because always I'm available.
It has been a long time since I've done taxes.
No, I mean that if you have any question, always to contact me.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm open.
Thank you. This was fantastic. And maybe I'm trying to maybe cut and paste this into the chat, but obviously we know how to get a hold of your son. So I think we're okay. I'm not worried about getting a hold of him. But
no, I'm always available.
Yeah, it's probably, I know it's a deeper conversation and we couldn't get to everything, but I think it's going to be an ongoing issue. That I know people just drop their bills or their statements at the end of each year with their accountant and they don't worry about it. But so much has changed in the tax code.
Yes.
I feel like the more we study up on it, the better. So if you do want to send us this presentation, we'll also make sure it's uploaded to the website and your info is up there. And I think Jeff just sent it in the chat anyway.
Sure.
So we'll do it. So this is good.
Yeah, I know. And you know that the tax filing extended until May 17.
Right.
For 1 month. And the reason is May 17 because whenever the tax filing is on weekend, they extend it until the next Monday. So they extended for 1 month, but May 15 is a Saturday. Then it has been extended until May 17 this year. So it's a 1 month extra that you can.
Well, I know this is not a tax question necessarily for you, Hadi, but with all these trillions we're spending in COVID relief, there's sure to be a tax hike at some point in our future. I just don't know what it's going to be. Maybe it's more business, but I just feel like there's another tax bite coming. I'm worried about what it's going to be.
I'm not sure how soon we can have that one because the new the tax law that we have right now, and Republican passed that one, it is valid until business tax dropping from 35 to 22% is forever, and personal tax is until 2025. And you know that if Biden wants to change that one, he needs 2/3 of Senate. This time he doesn't have that one. I don't see because some people in another group they were asking me to go and talk about the Biden's tax. And I said Biden tax is not going to happen soon because he doesn't. We don't have that 2/3 of a vote to revoke or repeal that previous, which is valid until 2025.
That's good to know.
Yes,
I guess that's good to know. But I also, what I learned from your presentation is to be successful like Trump in business is to lose as much money as possible so you can carry it over for the next 100 years. So I've been doing it wrong all my life, apparently. I should have been losing money instead of trying to make money.
Yeah, but you cannot be the president of Democrat in San Diego and follow Trump's.
Well, I won't be for much longer. I'm trying to talk Maj into it. But so with that, as the hour is getting late, I just wanted to mention if there are no more questions. Thank you so much, Eddie. This is fantastic.
Sure.
Please.
I have a quick
questions. Yeah, questions.
Shoot.
If you have a question, go ahead. I just have a statement, a small statement.
Actually, I have a statement too.
Okay. Well, what I wanted to say is that because I used to do taxes myself, and because I'm an accountant, I'm often asked about somebody referring some tax accountant, and a lot of people are asking for like CPA. Just I wanted to let you know that being a CPA doesn't mean necessarily you know more about taxes. The taxes are only 1/16 of the CPA exam. Enrolled agent is more important, and Hidayat is actually enrolled agent. He can represent people in the courts, you know, in case of tax boo-boos. So
Thanks, Amir.
so that's why I always, you know, go to him and try to refer people to him when they're asking me for a CPA to do their taxes.
Thank you very much, Amir.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. I just have a couple of comments that are actually not really tax related directly, but they're COVID or $1.9 trillion related. A couple of things that happened is under the relief bill, the government would pay the entire COBRA premium from April 1 to September 30th. So if you lose your job and you go on COBRA, the government will pick up the tab. The second thing is they passed this thing that says your premium for the healthcare exchange insurance plans cannot cost more than 8.5% of your modified adjusted gross income. So on the face of it, this all sounds great because it's going to bring relief to a lot of people. But just to bring my politics into this again, this is the most expensive way to achieve universal health care. It's to do it through COBRA. COBRA is so expensive, and it's just guaranteeing healthcare to the industry under the veneer of universal healthcare and helping people. Unfortunately, we have to all pay for that. So just wanted to throw my politics into this one more time, which is it's not a good way to get healthcare. It's still a patchwork. The better way is through Medicare.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or statements or comments? All good? Nearing the end. Former Sabzi is waiting. Oh, no, Former Sabzi has to wait. Maury has a question.
I have, I'd like to say that our next meeting is April 20th, and we have 4 candidates for the election that we're going to have in April the 20th. Maz is a candidate to become our next president. Jeff is our candidate to become our next vice president. Actually, he is the vice president, so he's going to be re-elected to the same post. And Amira is going to be our treasurer, hopefully, and Mary Lou, our secretary, and she is our secretary right now. And we also have a candidate here who has announced his candidacy, so he should also get the floor for a few minutes. Tommy Howe.
Thank you, Maury. I appreciate it. Thank you. This was a really informative meeting, and I'm happy to say that I came on board with Maz and Emily as far as the group relating to Medicare For All in the 52nd district. And obviously, as a candidate, I'm not able to advocate for that as much as I'd like to outside of running for office. But obviously, that's a concern of mine, and I'm very glad that that's being focused on in the 52nd. I'm running for San Diego City Council in District 6 in the city of San Diego, which is located entirely in the 52nd Congressional District. It includes Mira Mesa, Kearny Mesa, Eastern Claremont, Southern Rancho Penasquitos, Sereno Valley, and Miramar. And you know, I appreciate Maury mentioning that I announced last week we're off to a good start. I was going to announce back in January. I was appointed to the Planning Commission by Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reamer back in January, and then I was going to announce in February. And then a lot of the anti-Asian violence and intimidation really began to gain some traction in the media. You recall there was a woman who was hit on the San Diego trolley. I wound up sending a letter to the Human Relations Commission regarding that. And so I didn't want to announce kind of in the middle of that cycle. But the good news is that I've had a couple of follow-ups with some individual commissioners. The commission was supposed to actually discuss that back on March 17th, and they weren't able to have the meeting because they didn't have quorum. So this is not exactly an acceptable situation for the 8th biggest city in the United States, but it's something that that's a concern of mine, and it's a concern of my neighbors. And obviously we'll be talking about that as part of my campaign for city council. But essentially it's sidewalks and streets and getting streets rebuilt and street lights. And I'd be happy to talk with you more about that at a later date. But what I will do is I'll drop my information in the chat, my website and my phone. My website is tommyhough, HOUGH.com. That's TOMMYHOUGH.com. And I really appreciated the meeting tonight, and I look forward to speaking with you all very, very soon.
So Tommy, if you win, that means the whole city is blue?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. So District 6 is currently represented by Councilmember Kate. I ran against Councilmember Kate when he was running for re-election in 2018. We pulled 46.2% of the vote, and he outspent us 30-1. Wow. And we nearly put him away. We have a big chance to go and get a 9-seat majority, Democratic majority on city council. But I think as we've seen so far, not every Democrat is alike. But we do have a great opportunity to push some progressive policy and really focus on reinvesting in our neighborhoods, getting our streets rebuilt, and making sure that San Diego is as competitive a place to work as some other areas within the county. And obviously with Mayor Todd Gloria, we've got an opportunity to do that right now. So that's part of the messaging for my my campaign. But I look forward to speaking with you more about that. And believe me, I'm a politician, so I'll talk all night to you about housing and homelessness. But it's been wonderful to be here tonight. So thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Tommy. Good luck. Yes, Maury.
Yeah, let me just say that Tommy is a former president of the Democrat Club for the Environment. And he's probably one of the most progressive candidates that we've ever had. But on our own club, I just want to say that we've had the best year ever of our 15-year in this business of politics due to the leadership of Shahriar. And we are sorry to see him go from this position, but he has promised that he would stay on as our former president. And it's due to his leadership and the work of the whole group that we've had this past year that we had the best year ever. Thank you, Shahriar.
Thank you, Maury. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, if I wasn't overloaded with so many different things, and I'm also involved with AIAP, Association of Iranian American Professionals. I'm starting a few blogs from everything from autism to public service, politics. I'll be interviewing a lot of different, these are all things I've always wanted to do, but I just never got a chance to do it. So I wanted to pull the trigger and do it. And of course, I'm still very much involved in the food bank and all the fundraising and the stuff I do for them every weekend. And with another outfit that we heard from, Murphy's Produce with Purpose. So just with that, my brain is full. But what I always want to commit to you guys, I'm always going to be your advocate and your friend. It doesn't really matter what the titles are. Maz is absolutely a fantastic individual. He was right there with us, with Mr. Dadkha and Ali Saad and Amira and Maury, all of us, Shaheen, 15 years ago, before we had kids and less gray hair, and now. So I think we just got to keep going. And I think I can actually help the club more from the outside with some of the connections I hope to make in politics, more connections, and also some of the stuff I'll be doing with public service. So I'll be sharing that stuff with you. You'll see the websites, and you'll see the people I'm interviewing, and it's going to be something that you guys can plug into. So thank you so much. This is not the end. We're just changing, handing the baton over so I can take a little bit of break. But many times Maz may not be able to make it. I'll back him up if he needs it, or I know Jeff will. Just to keep on your calendar, April 20th, right? That's the date for our next meeting. We'll do a speaker again. We'll do a flyer, but we got to have the elections, I think, per our bylaws in April. So we got to do that. We got to get that administrative thing out of the way and keep going. Last thing I'll say is I'll also stay connected to to Melahat and that California Democratic Club that we're hoping to figure out what to do with. So it won't take more of your time. I'll stay connected to that, update the club with everything they need from us. And if we can join hands and create a Democratic Party of California and caucus and stuff, I feel like that's the natural progression of our club. But to Maury's point, we got to stay local. We got to get the local stuff right. We got to expand, get more, I don't want to say younger people, because I used to be young once, but I want to get more people involved, whatever age they are, so they can get something out of it, the club, other than just, not being away from their family. So that's all I have to say. If there's anything more, I think that's about
I
it.
do.
Yes.
I want to talk to everybody that is here. Thank you for attending. But one of the biggest thing that we need from everybody is to bring in new members. So if you know people, American, Iranians, Americans, they can be the part of the American of the Iranian American. Any people that you know that might be interested, it would be great for us to expand our membership so we have a louder voice. If you can bring like 2 or 3 people to the next meeting and then maybe talk them into becoming a member, that would be great.
Thank you. I think we got to go camp out in front of the new Alborz. That's the best way. They're now called Seaside Cafe and Grill. They're on Pacific. They're right kind of diagonally across from Del Mar Plaza. That's where you're sure to get the best, I think, candidates. But anyway, if there's no more, thank you so much for the speakers. Thank you for attending. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Nowruz.
Same to you.